In this video, I have the privilege to speak again for the second time this year with Debbie O'Brien from Nuxt. I'm not sure if that was an English sentence, but I guess you get the gist. We are speaking about her conference talk for the Vue.js Global conference that's happening in August of 2020. So this video is kind of a collaboration between me and the organizers of Vue.js Global. These are the same guys that did the excellent Vue.js Amsterdam conference this year. So I basically interview the speakers. We talk about their talk so the organizers can cut out a little bit to use as promotion. And then for the rest of the video, it's all up to me and to my guests to talk about whatever we like. So this is a pretty long discussion, but we go right in and there's a lot of cool stuff in there. So without further ado, this is the interview with Debbie O'Brien for the Vue.js Global conference. Hey Debbie, good morning. How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm good, thanks.
All good. Thank you so much for joining. So this interview is in context of the Vue Global conference. So we'll start off with talking a little bit about your conference talk, and after that we'll go into some other stuff. This is just so the guys can cut out a little bit and use for promotion. So can you speak a little bit about your talk?
Okay, so I'm obviously going to talk about Nuxt, right? Because working for Nuxt, and Nuxt is so amazing. So obviously I'm going to talk about Nuxt, and I want to talk about one of the newer features that has just come out, which is the content module. So basically my talk is going to be based on how you can use the content module for either developers or for actually using it to build, like, say, documentation sites, or for people building their own blogs, because it can be used, for either or for both. So basically, yeah, just kind of going through how content module works and all the cool features that it brings.
Okay, so what will people learn exactly when they've seen the talk?
Well, how easy it is to just use it to basically get started with Nuxt. So if you've never used Nuxt, for example, how easy it is to use Nuxt and create your content using content, so you don't have to learn how to use a CMS, and you don't have to learn all those other things that maybe you don't even need, right? But also, not just that, but anyone else who has a documentation site that needs to kind of be updated, how quickly it is to move from, say, VuePress, for example. And I do like VuePress. I'm not saying anything bad against it. But migrating from VuePress, for example, to Nuxt content is so easy. It takes seconds. And I want to showcase that as well, just in case people do want to, migrate to Nuxt.
Okay, there you go. So in your title, you kind of mentioned that it's kind of like an headless CMS. Or what do you mean by this exactly?
Yeah, so basically it's just a way of kind of saying that your content is decoupled from your actual code, right? So now you're not going to have your content in your code. You're going to have it in a headless CMS. But instead of having an actual CMS, you're going to use the content folder using the content module. So basically your content is separated. And I think that's kind of a cool feature, because it's, a lot of us, when we're developing, we're building our own websites, and we don't have the time sometimes, or we just don't want to set up a CMS for our content, and we just want to, quickly write something, and it gets complicated and too difficult, and then we just don't get around to doing half the stuff we want to do. And with Nuxt content, well, it just makes it a lot easier. So we can do that, and I want to just showcase how easy it is to use, so that people can decide, okay, maybe CMSs are great, right? And there's some brilliant ones out there, and they have their place. So it's not like this is taking over the CMSs. But there are moments when you don't need to set up a CMS, and you can just use this. And especially in the developer world, especially when we're creating our own blog posts, and especially when documenting plugins, modules, etc.
So it's more focused on the developers themselves and not potentially for bigger clients, right?
Exactly. It's more for you and me, and for any developer out there who just wants to get their content out there quickly and easily.
So when I started using Nuxt, this was maybe a year ago. It was mainly focused on the universal mode, or the single page app mode, where you have a node server or you have just a single page app, and it worked really well because it was super open. You can hook into anything you want with modules. And now lately, I think since the beginning of this year, you guys have started to add the content module and some other like tips and tricks, kind of small tool set things, but also like the full static mode. Is this because maybe other systems are growing a lot and Nuxt didn't do that? Or was this always the idea to go this way? Because it probably is going to outperform Gritsum and Gatsby quite easily because of its amazing bones, right? So what do you think about this?
Well, I don't know. I don't like to speculate between other frameworks. They're all doing.
No, of course. I'm not here to create controversy, right? But I'm interested why this direction.
Well, I don't think it's like why. I think it's something that we always wanted to do, or Nuxt always wanted to do, and it was difficult to do it properly. So we had this like full static. Remember, the difference between Nuxt and say Gatsby, for example, is that we also are doing server-side rendering and we're also doing single-page application. So it's not just as easy as like say, oh yeah, we're going to be full static because that's what we're going to do. We have to think about all the other use cases. And we have a lot of people still using server-side rendering. So we can't just say, right, now we're going to like forget server-side rendering and just do static hosting. That's not what we want to do. We want to still provide the best service, looking at all those options so that everyone gets what they want.
Yeah, so and I think... Yeah, exactly, because the server-side rendering is actually something that's amazing. It's kind of a strange concept that you server-side render and then hydrate and load effectively the same bundle twice and all this craziness. But on the other hand, it's serving me personally very well in a lot of projects. And we wouldn't have chosen a Gritsum for those projects because we need the extra complexity, right? Yeah. So to me, it's only getting better. Because if you look at the quality of the Nuxt content that comes out, I'm like, why did I choose this other thing that Next just came out with this? I'm going to have to rebuild again.
Right? Yeah, completely. And it's going to get better. I mean, we've just released the full static, right? But that is like, just like, I guess you could say just like a taster of what's coming, because that's going to be built upon, right? So that's amazing, but it's not finished. That's going to be even better. So we're going to keep working. Like Nuxt 3 is going to come out to pretty much soon enough, towards the end of the year. And that's going to like focus a lot as well on the full static, but also like not leaving behind server-side rendering. We're not like saying, oh, we're just going to go and focus on full static now. That's not the case. But with full static, we're obviously covering a lot of use cases so that you can deploy your application on Netlify, on free hosting. I don't pay for hosting anymore, and I don't want to pay for hosting, right? And as a developer, I have no interest in ever paying for hosting again. So being able to do that and use and leverage those services, then obviously full static is better for me, because before the full static did have the issue that it wasn't updating the API. Like if you refresh the page, you've got like, if you change your API, you'd get a different call to the API. And now everything is, it's all the same. It's basically in cached, it's in a static folder. So you're getting the same results all the time. And that just makes it much better, especially for clients, that they don't have that issue.
Yeah, and it's also very interested in this. Sorry, go on.
It's faster and better offline support, and it's faster to to deploy because we've separated the build from the actual generation of the pages. So if you're just changing content, we can now just regenerate your site based on the content without having to regenerate and go through Webpack, which makes...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the way those clients who are like, I don't want to wait 2 minutes for my site to deploy.
You're saying 2 minutes, right? I'm used to playing like, oh, okay.
Ours was 2 minutes at the time, right? And
I'm used to an hour.
Oh, no way.
Welcome to enterprise. If we build in 2 minutes, we're like what we're used to is like, okay, you know what? Press build, go and play foosball with your colleagues, and then come back. Oh, the build is done. Let's see if it worked. Like that's how long it takes. So if you say 2 minutes and then even less, I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, obviously it depends on how big your site is and how much content and stuff you have. But just being able to have that build kind of like almost cached to say so your build is done. You don't have to build again because you've only changed your content. So now I'm just regenerating those pages. If you obviously modify a plugin or a component, HTML, etc., then yeah, we're going to have to rebuild, But if you're just changing content, it's just super easy. Like the pages are already there. We're just generating what's inside it. So yeah, it makes it much faster and much better and much easier for clients as well, because they're just so impatient. It's like, hey, Seconds.
honestly, to me, this sounds like I want to be building some sort of cloud service to change the content in that build folder, on that static folder, and then suddenly create some sort of CMS where content editors actually go there without touching code. And of course, maybe that's too much, or I don't know, but for me, that would be very interesting, because if you separate those two things, you can suddenly have workflows for content editors, and they can actually do previews, and all of it starts to get together and being ready for bigger systems. So actually, this is super cool.
Exactly. And going back to what you just said, preview. So you have the enable preview mode. So you can actually live preview the content coming from the API or the CMS. So you can basically just create a new page or add modified text and put the query param preview equals true. And then you can see that change. And then you can decide, okay, I like that change. I'm going to deploy. I'm going to save it. Whereas before you could never do that, right? You had to always deploy from the API, and then you had to like, oh gosh, there's a mistake, and then you had to like modify it and then redeploy it. And now
Yep, I've
having
been
that
there.
live preview feature is just it's incredible, especially when you're working with clients like you and me know, working with agencies. You get to work with people who are not tech people, who like to see what they've put on a page before they actually deploy it. And now we can do that. So that's really cool as well.
Oh, I'm liking this. Oh man, questions are bubbling. I'll ask you
Yeah.
one more and then we go for the other stuff. So, what if, let's say you have an e-commerce, right? And so you have parts dynamic and parts static, because e-commerces also tell stories about products. So they're just beautiful pages with models on it and whatever stuff like that, right? So, can you actually combine a Nuxt as in universal maybe and a Nuxt maybe in some parts static? Does that work yet?
You can with like the single page application, yes. So you can have single page application fallback, but then you are not going to get those pages as with like meta tag, right? With
Yeah,
SEO.
exactly. Yeah.
So that's the only thing you're gonna. It depends on what you want. So we built it for a booking engine for a hotel, for a travel agency, so for booking hotels and stuff. And it was full static, but we had a booking engine with the hotel results as a single page application, because you don't need to get the result page having a search engine optimization, right? So that worked perfect for that situation. With an e-commerce site, it depends on what you want server-side rendered, what you want static, and why you want something server-side rendering. What are you going to gain from that? Unless you're constantly changing every couple of seconds and stuff. And
Well, there you go. It's not every couple of seconds, but there are like daily updates to like 500 pages with some content changes, but also personalization. And we don't want to always push the personalization as JavaScript, because that's a very heavy load. So we have this whole brain behind that knows exactly what people do and tracks them and all of that. So we want to be able to, when we render a page, we don't know yet what components are going to be on there. We're going to ask that API, tell me what do I show it in which state, and then render it. And so that's also hard to cache. And if you have to do that statically every time, it's just impossible. So you need some sort of node backend or something that we use. So that's why I'm asking. So now we just use Nuxt in universal mode and we're very happy. But I want to go and say some of those static pages are always static. They never really change. Let's say a campaign that has a picture and a video. We're not going to change that. So I would say there are a lot of openings now, and I'm really interested in your talk. And I could just read the docs, but I won't. So it would be very nice if you can actually talk about it. So yes, I'm super excited.
cool. I'm looking forward to giving it too.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you have been at Nuxt now for 4 months, something like this?
almost 4 months. Yeah.
Wow. So how do you like the job? Is it like what you imagined it would be?
It is amazing. Like seriously, it is. I don't know. It's like when you get paid to just do your hobby all day. Right? So in like the when I worked in the agencies and I was working with Nuxt, like I absolutely loved every minute of that. But then I also had to do other tasks. I also had to work with Angular. I also had to, team lead. I also had to do other kind of stuff, right? So it was always a job. Whereas now it's like it doesn't feel like I go to work. It just feels like I spend my Saturdays. It's like a Saturday. Every day is a Saturday, and I'm programming, and I get paid for it. And obviously, I have tasks, right? And obviously, I have like a roadmap and things to do and stuff. But it's all enjoyable work, and it's all I'm always learning the new stuff as well. And I'm working with a great team of people, which for me was like the one thing I wanted was to always, I don't want to be the best in the company. I want to be almost the worst, because then I can like grow and
You
be
can
better.
learn constantly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I feel like in the Nuxt team that's like, in a way where I'm positioned, right? Because I'm working with like some of the best programmers in the world, in my opinion, right? Who have
Clearly.
created like absolutely amazing, an amazing framework and modules and everything. And the brain behind these people is incredible. So to work with them, to get constant, help from them, it just means I grow so much. And that was like part of my thing this year. I want to learn more. I want to grow more. And yeah, I don't know. I absolutely just love what I'm doing. Seriously.
Oh, I'm so happy because I think it's always kind of hard when you decide to jump to something outside of your own country. And I remember us having some phone calls of like, hey, how does this work? How do you feel about stuff? And so can you explain like what was your personal narrative? Like how were you talking about this to yourself in your mind while making this decision?
Well, I guess there's a sign on my entrance of my apartment, right? And when I walk in, I take my shoes off, and it's something I read every time I like come in and every time I leave the apartment. And it says, "Do more of what makes you happy." And I was going out of my house every day, and I wasn't doing a lot of what made me happy. I was doing a lot of tasks in a job that wasn't making me happy, right? So I knew I needed to leave where I was because it's not making me happy, right? And this sign is telling me every day. So obviously, like when it came to Nuxt, I mean, what are the negative points of working with Nuxt? I mean, there are very few. Obviously, the biggest negative is changing from a contract job where you have like, better pension and all that kind of stuff to a freelance contract, right? Because, freelance contracts could end. And that's the only kind of negative thing. But in my opinion, it wasn't a negative thing because it's like, it's not an issue because I see Nuxt as something that's not a startup that's going to end tomorrow, right? It's something it's kind of very stable in my opinion. And at least 2 years we have like, from the funding, we have, a very good first 2 years. And I mean, we're going to like obviously grow and get better. And I'm sure there's going to be more funding rounds in the future, and it's just going to get better and better. So, yeah, so for me, it wasn't really that difficult to make the decision because also I know the Chopin brothers from many conferences. So I knew them personally. So I'm not going into a company not knowing what it's going to be like to work for these people, right? I mean, working for someone is different to knowing them, but you know them. And the team, okay, I didn't know the other members of the team, but I mean, that's fine. You just get to know them. And then the only other thing was working remote. So this is my first time ever taking up a remote job. So obviously not going into an office, and like obviously now nobody's going to an office, right? So so that's kind of been a nice help because it's a nice intro into working remote. But to be honest, I don't mind working remote once I have the interaction, like, some sort of like video calls with someone, just so I know people are there, that there's some kind of interaction, Slack messages, whatever. And that's something that we're getting. So I don't miss going into an office at all. I actually really like working from home because like it's summer here in Mallorca, right? It's like 35 degrees. And I can take pool breaks. I can like go down into my swimming pool.
Pool breaks. Are you kidding
for
me?
20 minutes, come back up, and then just work. And I mean, you could never do that in an office. So there are a lot of benefits to working from home, and I absolutely just love it.
I wanted to ask you, did COVID-19 and the pandemic and the lockdown change the scope of your job, and would working from home be worse? But you already answered that because it seems like you're totally fine with it and you're doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, it was harder when we were in lockdown, when we weren't allowed to leave the apartment, right? That was obviously harder, which meant I worked more because there was nothing else to do. So Easter holidays, for example, normally we have 5 days of Easter holidays. I didn't take a single day off because what do? You don't do anything. So I preferred to work. Whereas now, obviously, at the weekends, and you can see from my GitHub, you can see like Sundays, I'm not programming at all. Sundays, I am cycling, or I'm going to beaches, I'm going to mountains. And I actually think that's better because I think I work better and work more when I actually do take a day off and not use the computer 7 days a week. So I think taking a break is important. And I think the whole COVID thing made me not take a break which was the only negative thing, right, in that sense. But in general, yeah, in general, I mean, I miss traveling and I miss seeing people at conferences and stuff, and that's for me being the hardest thing, because obviously that was going to be a big part of my job as well. And I'm doing a lot of like I've done more talks during COVID-19 than I would have done if it hadn't been this whole virus thing, because it's easier to get people to speak at international events. And I've just had so many talks. It's just been overwhelming. Like, it's been incredible.
Okay, so actually you turned it into a positive, which I kind of like. Then again, the working too much, I have the same. I don't stop because I have a brain similar to yours. I just want to run with it. Doesn't always work out. But then again, if you balance your life, in the end, you're good.
So, this is why the pool breaks are important,
exactly.
Right?
So I have walking the dog breaks, but yes, it's the same.
Yeah, three times a day I try to go to the pool.
And I have 3 times? My hours. Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Just like 20 minutes, like literally like 20 minutes. I go down, swim for 20 minutes, come back up, and then I'm just so refreshed. And it just, my head, and sometimes I'm in the pool, I'm like, oh, now I know how to do that. And I come back up and it's a lifesaver. No, it's you need to do it.
So I have a pool next to my house also, but it's closed because of COVID. And it's like it's like a big pool with all this organization. It's not like one near an apartment where you just jump in because it's in your garden, let's say.
Well, it's it's community pool. So at the moment, because of COVID, we have a security guy there. We have to wear a wristband. We have to sign in. So there's a lot more control than normally but it's fine. And if you go at the right hours, the hours when there's no kids, and then you can like swim and stuff. If you go at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's just full of children.
It's impossible.
So you're like, no. So you choose your times wisely. And then if you have a meeting and you can't go, then it's like, oh, damn, you have to go and jump in with all the kids. But, it could be worse. I'm not complaining.
Yes, exactly. So a while back, I saw you on a live stream of a podcast with Lauren Lee. And she asked you about one of your experiences with getting I think it was like your first proper JavaScript-like job. And you told a crazy story of you had to just build a React booking app. And you had 6 weeks to do it. And then it took a lot of time. And then to me, it sounded crazy. Then again, I'm privileged because I had easier ways to get a job. But would you mind explaining how that felt and what you went through? And then once we're done with that, how would you hire someone, right? Because to me, that story was borderline crazy, but it probably taught you a lot as well.
Yeah, so it was in the time when I was studying JavaScript. So 3 years ago, right? So 3 years ago, February, I started studying JavaScript, and I had this possibility of getting a job, and I put my curriculum in, etc. And I had all the years of front end, so CSS, HTML, Sass, for example, but no JavaScript experience. I mean, I couldn't even use jQuery, right? So yeah, this job opportunity came up, and my CV was put on the desk of the right person, and they sent me the challenge. And I got this challenge to create a booking engine in React as a challenge, and I had 6 weeks to do it. And I didn't know JavaScript, never mind React. So I was like, where do I start? What do I do? I can't tell them that. So I just had to find a way of learning JavaScript and React within 6 weeks, which was impossible in my opinion.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So I did I was with Open Classrooms at the time, and they helped me obviously, with the help of a mentor, and I studied a hell of a lot, worked my way up to it. And I was also doing the Treehouse courses, as many courses as you could possibly find on JavaScript. And at the end of the 6 weeks, I had created this booking engine, which was absolutely crap, right? But it was cool. I still have it. But it worked, and it was good, and I was proud of it. But it's, it was really junior kind of dev stuff, right? So I handed it in and said, this is what I built, but I've never learned JavaScript before this. So this is what I had to learn and what I did to get to this stage. And if I had more time, this is what I'd do. And then they gave me 2 weeks more because they said they could see potential. And they were really, they were really positive and really helpful towards it. So I was like, great. So I had another 2 weeks, and they asked me to create a Chrome extension. And
what question is that? Chrome extension?
I know when I think about it, I'm like, I don't even know how to create a Chrome extension now, but I created a
No,
Chrome extension
exactly.
and it worked. It was a little buggy, but it worked. And a README with like, you know, a lot of details. I had to learn all Markdown and create this amazing README and then add some dynamic kind of data and stuff. And I did this, right? And I handed this in and they said that I was the most, what do they say? The most, I can't remember the exact words, but like the most active applicant they've ever seen, right? Like they'd never seen someone who'd done so much to get to this stage.
Honestly, finishing that makes you probably the only one, because who would want, let's say you don't have a job, right? And you want to find a job and you have to take 8 weeks of full work to get there. A lot of people probably won't do that.
Yeah, because you probably shouldn't spend that long. But I obviously didn't have the skills, so I had to spend that long. But nowadays, I could probably do that in a lot less time, right? So for me, to be honest, it was a great way to learn what the job would require. Because by doing that challenge, I knew what I needed, where I needed to focus, what company's looking for. So it was a very, very valuable task, really. Now, after those, this is like 6-8 weeks. Then they gave me another challenge.
Another, okay.
Yeah, which yeah, it was it was a very long process. And then basically after that challenge, which was creating a WordPress website, right? Which I was like, I just want to get away from WordPress. I want to work in JavaScript. But obviously I had a lot of WordPress experience, so I kind of just did
okay.
it.
You were able to do that quite fast, I guess.
Yeah, but it wasn't interesting for me. It was like boring. So I was like, I just don't want to do this. I didn't, give up my career in teaching to go back into web development to work in WordPress. That was not where I was going. And I was very honest with them and I put it in that, when I handed in the project, and maybe that kind of made them say, oh, no way. So I didn't get that job.
I'm sorry, this is so ridiculous. They asked you to do 3 completely different things, something you would likely never do in real life, unless it's a company of 3 people, and then not hire you while you persevered. Like, it's a personal win, I would say. Like, that's insanely awesome. But for them to just say, nah, that hurts almost.
It was really hard because they didn't even give like feedback, right? So I just got the usual human resources letter. Thank you very much. You haven't been successful this time. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I cried. I was like, oh my God, I failed again. It was really, really hard. And luckily I have a friend who works in there, right, in a different department. And I said to him, can you just, just find out something? I need some feedback, just something to kind of help me go in the right direction. And, to be honest, they were very helpful and they gave the feedback back to my friend who gave it to me and basically said that, if they had taken me on, they would have had to spend too much time training me. And they needed someone to just be able to jump into the role. And I completely understand. And they said, like, they recommend, like, keep building things, just keep working and keep building. And in a year's time, things will be very different. And I mean, they were so right. Because a year's time, like, wow, the difference is incredible. So yes, it is a complete pity because part of their whole team structure and thing is like, fanatic learning. And, they want people like me, but they don't want junior developers, right? They want people who are ready to step into a role. And I think that's the biggest thing with companies. You're willing to learn and you could be so amazing, but they're not willing to take you until you have all that experience behind you and really, really know what you're doing. So
this is quite painful because how do you ever get that experience? By having crazy 8-week or maybe 10-week things like this? Probably not. You actually need to get a chance. So to me, it sounds a bit like, okay, we are this company. We need these kind of people. We're going to put some sort of outrageous thing out there, see who jumps. It's kind of an arrogant thing to do to me, but they probably didn't even think about that. They just want the best people.
Yes, they want the best.
Do you feel like they strung you along a little bit, or I wonder what that, like, how they thought, like, what is the process there?
To be honest, like, because the first way of the contact I had with them was really, really nice. I had personal emails and it was really, really nice. And then it switched, it changed. And all of a sudden that happened. And it was explained to me actually that they changed the way they do things so that the developers were not the ones speaking to the applicants, it was all through human resources. So they changed their process, and I was in the middle of that process. So I went from this lovely, amazing feedback to like a horrible blank, you just are another person on a list, right? And that felt a little horrible, right? That wasn't the fault of the developer. The developer was obviously doing his job and then told, hey, you're not allowed to use that email and that communication anymore. And the funny thing was that basically, I think it was about a year later, I won a place on a course with Kyle Simpson to go to Trivago for a week to learn JavaScript, right? So basically I was sent to Trivago, to the company that said no to me.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know. Okay, yes. Okay. So you were sent there. Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. So I won the place. I got chosen to go there because I contributed to Webpack at the time. And I won a place, right? So I'm there for a whole week in Trivago, in the company I want to work for, in this amazing office, because they have amazing offices. And I'm learning JavaScript from one of the best teachers in the world. And there I am in this office, and the person who interviewed me is actually in that office.
Whoa.
And I got introduced to him, and I actually had a really nice conversation with him. And he was like, I'm really, really sorry. I felt so bad because you had so much potential. And, so he explained it in a really, really nice way. And it was really, really nice. And to be honest, I have had great chats with the managers of Trivago, and completely, we have absolutely, I have no problem with, how they did things, with the way their procedure was. I probably would not have hired me either.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
Because I wasn't ready. And if I was in their position, I probably would have made the same decision. And I don't think even nowadays, I've worked on the other side, and I've, taken in people's, what do you call it?
Applications?
Yeah, but we don't call it not just applications, because over here in Spain, we all give people a trial, a test to do, right?
Oh,
before
sure.
you
Okay.
have an interview. So it's a normal thing. What Trivago did here is normal, and it's what everyone does. So we send somebody something to do, and they send that back. And there's a lot of times we don't, because you get too many back, and you can't then take that one person and say, hey, I'm going to mentor you, and I'm going to tell you what you did wrong and how you can be better. Because at the end of the day, we're a company, we need to employ people, and we need people to be able to do the job. And if we don't have enough people to be able to help and train and mentor someone, then we can't take on the junior developers. And that's the sad truth and the sad reality of the world we live in. People don't have time. Therefore, the junior developers find it very difficult to come into work because we don't have time for them.
It feels like you should maybe work where I work, because we have a lot of junior developers, and we choose them based on how they communicate, how they carry themselves, how they ask questions, and if they have some sort of wit, and you can learn on the job. So we have a bunch of them, and they're now basically, after 2 years, they're superstars. So
yeah, for sure.
I make that time, but I'm in a luxury position where I can do that. So not everybody has that. This is clear. But
yeah.
I totally believe in that, because if I now hire someone who is, let's say, 35 or 40 and has some experience, they have certain expectations for a job, which is normal, but those expectations might actually derail your common goal of the team, even though this person is a rock star. So I'd rather get younger people who have less experience, but you can mold them by teaching them what is the need of the greater good here. So yeah, it's kind of a balance there, because for you I'd hire in a heartbeat because it kind of fits, but that's not with everyone, right? So it's a very interesting concept here. So how would you now, let's say you were in charge of hiring someone at Nuxt. Let's say you're going to hire me. What would you do? What would your process be?
I am so glad that I don't have to hire people because in my last job I was in charge of that, right? And it's really hard, and it's very hard, especially when you live on a small island, right? And you work for a company that only allows you to hire people based on the island or who are willing to come and move to the island, right? So obviously working with Nuxt is different because it opens the whole world, right? But when you're stuck with a limitation like that, there are not that many people available. Like you're really, really putting it. Yeah. And I did hire one person who was really, really young, and I got questions from the bosses saying, oh, he's only like 22. I was like, and they're like, where did he study? I went, I don't know. I didn't ask him. Like, you what? You don't know where he studied? I said, I
I
don't
have
care.
never asked anyone where they studied, and I hired like, I don't know, 50 people in my career, probably more. I have never once asked that. Same here.
Where they studied, because I didn't go to university.
Well,
so
I went and then I quit. So I know nothing.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. So things like that are not important to me. Like, where did you study that? I don't care where you studied. Show me your code. I want to see your code. I want to see what you've done. What's your GitHub profile? I want to check that page out. I want to see, what you're doing. And one of the questions that I used to ask as well is, what do you want? Why, when you come here, what do you expect and what do you want from it? Because if they're just looking for, I just want a job, okay, or if they come, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to build new things. That's the kind of person I want. I want someone with energy. And there are a lot of different people, right? And like when working in an agency, we also needed people who were just going to come in and do a job, right? Who weren't going to, push themselves and learn because they just wanted to work till 5 o'clock, just get something done. And we need those people as well, because if everyone is growing and stuff, it's hard to kind of like mentor those and make sure they have the right career ladder and kind of help and push them to what they want to do. So in Nuxt, for example, it would really depend on the role that we need. Like, I think there's different people for different roles. If we wanted someone who's just going to come in and fix bugs, for example, and just help on the framework fixing bugs, then we don't need someone who's really like wants to be so amazing and like speak at conferences and grow in that path. If we want someone who's going to like, who wants to build modules, who wants to like, I don't know, just kind of like program and stuff, then we want someone who's got a lot of kind of not even experience, but someone who's done something like that before, even if it's just for themselves, and who can show us, hey, this is what I've done. And I guess you could say someone who's creative, someone who like that doesn't need to be told every day, okay, today you're going to do this, and then tomorrow this is what you need to do. So I think the creativity and someone who's able to come in and say, oh, I want to do this, or they're asked, can you do this? And they give you something more, right? I think that's really, really important when looking for someone, that they give their extra, as opposed to, I'll give you a guideline and say, can we create this? And then they give you this.
Cool. Actually, what's funny is when I asked you for a process of how you would do it, you didn't give me a process, you just gave me a vibe. And that is exactly how I do it too. I don't actually care about rules. And I live in France, so it's scary to say these things because they love their rules. But if you then always battle those, and then at one point I just say, okay, I trust this person, let's roll with it. Generally, those work out really well. Yeah. So yeah, I like that we're on the same page with that. Listen, we are like 40 minutes in. Yes. And I know people will not watch the whole thing, but we have a lot of good content in here. So I'm really happy. I'm just going to upload the whole thing, but let's not go much longer, because also I don't think my PC can render much more. Anyways, I wanted to thank you a lot for taking the time today. And I'm really looking forward to your talk on the Vue Global conference.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to. I have to write it. I haven't written it yet. It's all in my head, right? But we keep building more things and improving so much that it's very hard to to finalize it until like almost the week before, because like we could just release something else, and then I'm like, oh, and I've got to change it. So yeah, I'm really excited because Nuxt is just getting better and better and better. And I'm really excited for more people to see how easy it is to use. And also because it's global, right? This is like, we can touch every corner of the world with this conference, right? And before, me and you, we've both been to Amsterdam. It's an amazing conference. There's about 1,000 people there, right? And then, the video is online and some people watch it online. But now we can reach everyone in the world, some people who could possibly not afford to travel or whose visas wouldn't allow them to come to the country, right?
Okay. That's a very important one.
Yeah, and we're reaching these developers, and I think these developers are the future. These people who have never had this opportunity before are now going to learn things that they never had the possibility to learn very easily. And like just to be able to target all those people, I think is just incredible. And yeah, we're like Nuxtifying the world. This is what we're
Yeah.
doing.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you in real life soon.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.